get caught in some algorithm sometime and just go down the rabbit holes and you begin to think of all sorts of things and not realizing that may or may not work for your body. There's a couple of algorithms I've gotten stuck in lately and I just cannot believe them. Like,
cue music. Places, everybody places. We're starting in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. I've brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted.
Thank you for joining us here on the Autoimmune Hour with Sharon Saylor. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio. Join the Autoimmune Hour's Courage Club. Sign up now at understandingautoimmune.com. Now, back to your host, Sharon Saylor.
hi everyone, Sharon Saylor here from SharonSaylor.com and of course from UnderstandingAutoimmune.com. And tonight, guys, it's a pre-record. I know life happens though, and I'll be back with you next week. What I did was compiled some of my favorite aha moments, and when I looked through them all, tonight's 470th episode of the show, and that was way too many for me because I have hundreds, if not thousands, of aha moments. So what I did was I just looked at 2024. That's right, just the last 60 days, and I chose 4 of my favorite aha moments. So enjoy, and I'll see you next week. We're into 2024 already. And who better than to call but my dear friend Pamela Sylvan, the Mojo Maker, plus so many other things. She's awesome. And I just love talking to her. Always got things to do, things to think about for us to keep motivated and keep going in the right direction. And she recently sent out in her wonderful Saturday newsletter, she sends out the most amazing newsletter every Saturday. She sent out her top 40 things. I was thinking like the top 40 music kits and things like that. But she sent out top 40 things to think about. So I'm really excited. We're going to talk to her. I tried to find my top 5 of the 40 and I failed miserably because I love them all. Let me tell you her bio because she's awesome. She's been on the show before and she's always just, everyone adores Pamela. She is a highly accomplished personal development whisperer, primarily for midlife women who know they are not done yet. And I like to say that about us autoimmune thrivers. We're not done yet either. And people who'd like to express and flow with more vibrancy in their lives. And for over 35 years of experience in the field of self-improvement, public relations training and development, and leadership, Pamela has established herself as a respected expert and sought-after speaker. I was going to say thought leader, and then I'm reading your bio and it says sought after speaker, but I'm going to say thought leader too, Pamela. We're going to put that in there. I just love talking with Pamela. So welcome to the show, Pamela. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me, Sharon. I just love coming on your show and speaking with you and your audience. So thank you.
I failed miserably in choosing my favorites, but there was one that stood out to me that I would really like you to delve deeper into. And I'm going to read it because I can't remember it verbatim. So guys, I'm sorry that I'm taking eye contact and reading something here. Use the 10-3-2-1-0 formula for the perfect night's sleep. 10 hours before bed, no more caffeine. I laughed at that one. 3 hours before bed, no more food or alcohol. 2 hours before bed, no more work. 1 hour before bed, no more screens. 0 snooze button hits in the morning. So I said yes. And then a little part of the evil twin goes, yes, and. So explain how we do this and then also how we keep our motivation up to continue it.
Before I even dive deeper into that particular formula, I'm really big on systems. I am very hard-headed and stubborn when it comes to getting things done. Here, I hold myself up as an accountability coach in the broader sense of things, yet it's very difficult for me to get myself to do the things that I say that I'm going to do. So I have to come up with these little systems that I can follow along. I have what I call a manifestation wall, and all of these reminders go up there. So as I accomplish something, I get a little tick. I'm very big on seeing the thing happen real time. I go by, I make a tick, okay. By the end of the day, I'm feeling really good that I managed to put a check mark beside something. So that formula of going to bed with the 10 hours before bed, no caffeine and so forth, is running a program within myself about how my body runs. Because of the way caffeine hits or lands on me, and I have no intention really of giving up caffeine at this point, but if I allow myself to drink caffeine too close to my bedtime, I'm not going to get the type of sleep that I really do need to function properly the next day. So 10 hours before bedtime, no caffeine, if at all possible. We are human beings. We sometimes slip, but at least I have a plan. Screen time, the same thing, as far away from bedtime as possible. Again, we're human beings, but at least I have a plan. So every day I get to see how well I was able to trigger the plan and put it to use. And what did I do well? What didn't I do well? I beat myself up over nothing, but at least I'm making the effort. And sometimes I'm bang on. Other days I blow it out of the park. It's nothing's happening. Over the holidays, didn't do too well because of what I'm away from home. I'm at somebody else's home and all the excuses in the world, but I can go back to it because it's a blueprint. And sleep is a very important part of our lives, and we are sleep deprived like crazy because we're distracted. We have these screens in front of us all the time, and we're not getting the type of sleep that we need to function properly and appropriately to make our minds an amazing tool for us to use. So our minds are and our brains aren't working at full function because we are so sleep deprived and dehydrated. I'll put that in too.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And talk about sleep deprived. We've had sleep experts on before that explained to me. And I think when I thought about it as more as a scientific for my brain, sometimes I need the science behind things.
Mhm.
And when you sleep is when the garbage gets taken out. All the things, not only in your brain, but your whole body just goes into this
That's
healing
right.
mode. And out goes the garbage. It was like,
That's
okay.
right. That's right. And most people are running around with high levels of cortisol because they're not getting the adequate amount of sleep. And that's why even losing weight becomes an issue because our bodies can't go into that sweeping away mode that you just spoke about because we are not allowing it to sleep. We eat way too late into the evening. So our natural clocks are fighting against what we've just done to it. So it can't take out the debris from our bodies. We have these sort of 3 8-hour cycles that if you're an intermittent faster, you understand what those cycles are about with your body. We are always interrupting them. That's why getting adequate amount of sleep, you are then helping your body go into the mode that it needs to go into to do the work it needs to do on your behalf. Whenever possible, try to work with your body as opposed to against it.
Mm, absolutely. Now, you're always great at how you can frame things for other people when you've got, I'll say, bad news. If you wanted to prioritize your sleep as an individual, and I'll say other family members, maybe you are the one who's wanting to go to bed early and somebody else is a night owl or whatever.
Mhm,
Do you have
mhm.
graceful ways of telling them that, hey, new change of plans for 2024. I'm going to prioritize my sleep. Any thoughts on how to break that to people?
See if you can have them buy into it with you because it's not just something for yourself, it's good for everybody, right? It was a conversation I had with my partner because when he moved down over to Victoria from Ontario and my whole loony kind of cycles he was met up with, and he raised his eyebrows. What do you mean you're going to bed at 8 o'clock? What is that? But he saw the value in that, and because I'm an early bird, I'm up by 4 o'clock in the morning, and he saw the value in that. It takes practice. It took practice for me to do this. I think when people you explain things to people in a manner that they will find valuable and see what it's doing for you, they slowly begin to buy into it because to me, at this age in our lives, well, we're no longer spring chickens. What can we do to raise the quality and the value of our life? And to me, being clear-headed is one of them. Enjoying my mobility to its fullest is another one. So what can we do either through the use of food, sleep, hydration, good quality content through books, reading, videos, all of these things, conversation, the people we meet. What are the good things that we can enlist for ourselves and hold ourselves responsible for so we do find the quality of life that we're seeking? And others in our life would want that for themselves too, as well as want it for you too. So he's bought in fully. He looked at it strange at first because that's not something that he ever thought about. But once you put something in front of people with the science, as you say, that you need the science behind some things, you get to see that they eventually will understand that you are taking your life seriously, especially this part of your life. We have a wonderful pot of time available. And when I say a pot of time, you and I might live to be 100 years, Sharon, but what quality of life will it be? There's no use getting to 100 and you don't remember your name and someone else is responsible for all of your bodily needs and functions. It's not the same. Right now, we are mobile, upright. We remember our names most of the time. Now is a great time. We are full of wisdom. We are full of vim and vigor, and there's so much that we can bring to the table. Use all of this. Use what you have at your disposal and create that masterpiece for yourself and let others see you doing it so they can do it for themselves as well.
Oh, I love that. Love that. Everyone, that's Pamela Sylvan at PamelaSylvan.com. And give us your URL on YouTube too, because I love all your little adventure videos.
I have two channels. One is Mentor Pamela Van on YouTube, and the other one is called Natural Mojo.
And they're both awesome. So everyone, that's Pamela Sylvan. We've got Feng Shui Master Marie Diamond on the show, and she's got a brand new book out. Let me get the title right. Let's see. Feng Shui Your Life. That's the title. And I'm really excited to have her on the show tonight. Marie, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me here. I'm so excited.
I have heard so much about Feng Shui, and I've often thought it was just about repositioning your desk or a mirror or something like that. But as I got more into studying it and with your help here, understanding that it's way deeper than that. When we're talking about things like health and wellness and feng shui, explain to me, we were talking about how energy flows and things like that. I'm still confused how the placement of things in my home will make me healthier.
First of all, we see that Feng Shui was first practiced for health and well being. So it was not first focused on money or relationships. When they started practicing Feng Shui, it was really to get longevity. Because if they had their front door or they had their windows towards the north or the east, then there would be colder winds coming in. And so if they had their front door or their windows towards the south or west, they would have warmer winds coming in. And when there's more warmth, there was longer energy during the day. So the immune system would really thrive from that. So nowadays, of course, we have heat within the house, so we can really tap into something else. The way you position things around you will affect you. So let me say, for example, the bedroom. So if people are going into the bed and the bed is set up in such a way that you can see people coming into the door, so you're not like on the same wall of the door that comes into your bedroom, then you will actually have more strength. You will have more power because you are in what we call the power position. What we have seen is when we do tests with encephalograms, if people are sleeping in what we call power position, you can see the door coming from the hallway. I'm not talking about the closet door or the door to the bathroom, the door that you come into the room. We have seen that people spike up their alpha brainwaves. And so when you're sleeping with your head on the same wall of the door, you spike up your beta brainwaves. Now, when you have beta brainwaves, it's more difficult to, I would say, bring more positive energy into your mind. And so people are more worried. They're more faster going into procrastination. They have a harder time to be optimistic. So when you sleep towards what we call a power position, you literally start having the alpha brainwaves, and that means you will start also getting easier to heal. You will be easier to think positive about the future, about whatever is going on in your life. You will be more focused on actions and be more proactive. So that's the first thing we have seen already by that. But not just in the bedroom, also wherever you are sitting. And that can be in your office, it can be in your dining room, in your family room. Always sit in a position that you can see the people coming into the room because your vibration changes. Not just your vibration, but also your brainwaves are changing. Now, we also have seen if people then on top of it can sit, and that's not always possible, depends on the location of the house, can also face, look at a direction while they're awake. That is one of their four good directions. That will actually spike them up even more to even go into theta brainwaves. So it's really interesting. The brainwaves are really affected by your positioning, connecting in with the chi. And for example, I am seeing the door in my office. I can see people coming in, but I also face my wisdom direction. I'm teaching, so wisdom is a good direction for me. But for example, when I do health practices, so if you do any practice of health, if that is yoga or if it's qigong or tapping or everything you do, face and look at your health direction because your brain will be more open to receive the information that you're creating. Now, at night, we try to sleep with our head towards a good direction. Now, that is not always possible. Sometimes it is. It depends again on the location. But if you cannot sleep towards that good direction, activate your health direction. So make sure there's no clutter. You can put there books on health, certifications you have on health practices. You can put there your supplements, for example. So anything that resonates with it. So everything that is around you will affect you. But on your health and being, and the last point I really want to focus on is mirrors. So when people have mirrors in their bedroom, then they will actually double the stress vibration because the mirrors are like doubling your body, but are doubling. You come to sleep, you're feeling not so great. So you double that energy. When you're sick and you have mirrors, you double the energy of that is the negative frequency of your health. So I would suggest that you always cover them at night. Put a curtain in front of it, put a screen in front of it at night. First of all, I always say that 80% of my students have reported that they sleep better. That's the first rule. They sleep immediately much better and longer, deeper. So when you sleep deeper, you have more REM phases. So rapid eye movement phase, you go and heal faster. The second thing that we have seen, and there are some tests being done in China about it, is that when people have mirrors reflecting their bed, blood pressure has a tendency to go up, inflammation is stronger, and white blood cells are enhanced, or like there are more of them. So once they cover it, they see naturally the blood pressure going down, and there's less inflammation happening in the body. So these are some things that people can do, very practical. It's literally covering your mirrors at night. During the day, you can keep them what they are. But especially when you are sick in bed, cover your mirrors. Your health process will go faster.
Wow, that's amazing because I think that's the one place most people have at least big mirrors is in the
Me
bedroom.
too. In the US, yes, but in Europe, nobody does that.
That's fascinating. Now, one of the other things I was thinking about though is when you said when we were talking about different positions in the room and mentioned like what if you're active want to activate your wisdom and what if you want to activate all of them at the same time? Can you do that? I'm thinking, gosh, I don't want to just pump up my wisdom and let my health stay here.
You can do all your four directions. I always would suggest that, but I'm sometimes telling it's not always possible. Let's say you have a door where your success direction is, right? So yeah, there's a door. You cannot change that. But perhaps in another room, you can do activate your success direction. So you have to be practical also and creative in how you want to activate that. But another thing I want to suggest also is to think about what is really there. go through your house and look at the images. Like, what is really there? Is this affecting me in some way? I'm giving you an example. I had this woman and she had all the time headaches and she was trying all kinds of solutions. And she was like, it helps, but then I go back to sleep. And again, I have this pain in my head. And she said, it's just, I feel like I'm allowing it to happen. I'm allowing this headache to come back. And I said, that's weird. So I said, let me look at your bedroom. So above her bed, she had an image. She was very Catholic, but she had an image of Jesus with a torn crown. So each time she goes to bed, she's actually seeing that image in her subconscious mind. Yeah. So I said to her, I think this would be really good to take that away. He said, but I'm such a believer in Jesus. I said, that's wonderful. I'm sure there are other images of Jesus you can hang there, right? Images where his hands are open, he shows his heart. There's so many beautiful images of him around. Let's change that. And so she did that. And then she was like, she felt like energy was different for her. And so she said, I go to bed and now I feel like Jesus is there with his hands open, like I feel his healing energy. And I feel so much more at peace at night when I go to sleep, and my headaches are less. I said, it's supporting your health practices. I'm not saying it's going to heal you, but it's going to help you to make sure that whatever you do as a health practice, as medicines or healing, it will support you. So the whole question is, does your home support you, or does your home limits or blocks your flow of energy? So this is just sometimes simple, but it's just the images are giving us all the time a message. And the message is we want to heal, but if that image, and it was also in her health direction on top of it, she was sleeping towards her health direction, what looks really good, but with the wrong image. So I said to her, you actually want to heal, but at the same time, you're still blocking yourself from it. Yeah. So just be aware of what is hanging, what is placed in the areas. I remember this other man, and he had all the time problems with his joints of his elbows and his knees. And so he said, I did all the right process and procedures, but still, I still attract all this pain. And so I looked at his house, and he had in all his rooms, he loved Greek statues. So he had images of men without arms and legs. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So subconsciously, he's telling there's a problem there. So I said to him, why don't you remove them and put them away for a while and see how you feel? And I really feel so much better, because I said, even if you do all these wonderful procedures to really be better, still your subconsciously is getting the message, I'm not good on that level. Yeah. So sometimes just taking it away for a while. And I say to people, at least take it away for 10 days. Just take that image off. Even if it's nothing instead, that's fine. It's better nothing than something that is not right. Yeah. And then people they never hang it back, because they can feel it has made an impact in their mindset. It has made an impact sometimes in their actions. And he said also, it's very interesting, because sometimes I don't have enough the discipline to do my exercises that he got from his therapist. He said, but since I put these images away, I am so focused on doing my exercises. So it's just that sometimes you are more proactive with the right things around you.
And this brings up, we've had Sarah Payton on, who's a neurobiologist educator, and it's fascinating to me. I can see some really correlations where she says that the two things that people want from the very beginning and at all times, they have this little radar going around in their head saying, what the first question is, am I safe? And the second question is, do I matter? And I can see from what we put in our home, we may not feel safe, even if it's something that we find pleasant to look at while we're awake. Our unconscious mind might conjure up all sorts of other meanings around something that we either were gifted or we like, or something like that.
Yeah, it can go in alert mode. Our subconscious mind can go in alert, saying this doesn't feel really right. So for example, I have people, and it's also about colors, right? So I have sometimes people in their bedroom, they put a lot of reds. Now, I would say you can wear something red during the day, that is fine. Red is a fire, it's passion, it's great energy. And some people say, I want more passion in my bedroom. I put everything in red. On your subconscious level, when there's red, there's fire. Now, would you sleep when there's a fire around you? I don't think you will, right?
Right.
So it's just, you have to think this way. The same with if people put all blues around them in their bedroom. Blue stands for water in Feng Shui. So it's people start drowning literally because everything is in blue. So I said to them, if you would be sleeping on a boat, would you feel safe if you would be sleeping there all the time? Like day and night, you're always on the boat. To be honest, you get a little bit crazy if you don't once in a while go off the boat and go on land and reconnect with the earth magnetism. So the whole point is people start feeling drowning. But that means, first of all, not physically, of course, but mentally. And so they feel like they have lack of clarity. They feel like there's no focus. So they wake up and they are really exhausted with all the blue. So I always say to people, work with earth tones like the beiges, the browns, the yellows, pinks, oranges, even metal colors, whites, off-white, beige, silver, gold are really good colors at night. It doesn't mean you cannot add a little pop of red, right? For sure. But having too much fire, too much water, people get out of balance in their bedroom and they have a harder time to recuperate. Yeah. So that's the whole point. Your bedroom is a place of longevity. So think about that. So what is there is affecting your health more than in any other place.
Wow. There's just so much expansiveness to what we could learn here today. We're almost out of time. We've got about 7 minutes left, I think, as I'm looking at the clock. So what are some final things you would like to share with our audience?
One thing I really, the whole time we talked, I want to talk about is plants, because you have a huge plant behind you and the plant is all with very sharp edged leaves. And so in Feng Shui, everything needs to be round and blossoming. Think about my orchid behind me. So it always opens up the mind. Now, having such a huge plant with sharp edges, sharp leaves close to your aura field really affects your nervous system. So,
Wow.
and
Okay. Well, we have to find a new home.
yes, at least out of your sight, it also attracts more criticism and less recognition. And as it's really almost so close to you, it really affects your health and your concentration and your focus. Be aware of that you don't want these things that are dead, like dead flowers, potpourri, sharp edged things, everything like this is really affecting your nervous system, your qi, because everything in Feng Shui that is round, that is oval, that is blossoming is considered positive energy. Everything that is sharp is considered Shakti, that means really attacking energy. Yeah. So what you have right now is very attacking vibration. And I have seen people having this kind of tree close to them when they're working, becoming all the time sick. So as we took that away, the immune system starts boosting up and they start feeling better. So I just want to give that as a last advice to you and all your listeners and viewers.
If they're on video, they can see that it's a big palm plant.
It is. So
It's going to have to be rehomed. I'll tell you that. Okay.
yes, of course.
Thank you so much, everyone. That's Marie Diamond. And you can tell she's a master of Feng Shui. We just scratched the surface today for sure. But I've got so many things to do. And the first thing is rehome my old palm plant here. Just on a side note, though, maybe I don't want to totally rehome it. Where in the home could something like that go? Or is it just like a no?
It's a no.
Oh, okay. Okay, everybody. Next time you see me, the palm plant will be rehomed. and, and thank you so much, Marie. Be sure and get her book, Feng Shui Your Life.
The Autoimmune Hour will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by understandingautoimmune.com to learn more.
Om Times TV. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
Tonight we have Dr. Charryse Johnson back. You'll remember she's from the book Expired Mindsets. Sorry about that. I guess we could be inspired to work on our
That's what I
expert
was thinking.
mindset.
Yes.
Well, and you guys might remember that she's a veteran psychotherapist and an award-winning speaker and author of #1 best-selling book, Expired Mindsets, as I said. And she's got a new book out, and let me read the title, just get it correct. Get Off the Scale and Heal. I love it. It's a great book. It's really not a weight loss book, okay, guys? But we're going to talk about that because many people struggle with this, with the pressure to conform to certain stereotypes and ideals and limits. And it really comes to the forefront during the holidays. And then at the new year, everybody piles into the gym and all of that. So we're going to talk about this great book. It's all about self-love and empowering ourselves and breaking free from external judgments. Welcome back, Dr. Charryse. It's so wonderful to see you again.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. And I loved your reaction about the book because if I'm honest, I totally did that on purpose, right? I totally made it to where people would go, wait a minute, is this person who is all about body positivity talking about losing weight? Absolutely not. But I know that that's on the mind of a lot of people. So I'm like, let's get into it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. So I'm all about these kinds of ways of non-confrontational types of things. But I know the book isn't really about confrontation. I know it's about conforming to the social pressures. And I took some notes here. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is comparison and taking things in context. That was really stood out to me about this idea of how we are constantly comparing ourselves or letting other people compare us, and how taken out of context, it can mean completely different things.
Sure. When we put ourselves in situations that we are comparing our body weight or shape or size or well-being to another person's, it's extremely damaging. For example, if we're living with an autoimmune disorder, and typically we are more likely to have two if we have one, those present very unique challenges to our body. So if we are then comparing ourselves to someone that isn't living with an autoimmune and going, they're able to do this and I'm not, why is this working for them and not for me? We really create a lot of shame and self-blame instead of compassion towards our body. When those things make us feel bad, we can feel like a failure, or we can feel overwhelmed and want to give up on taking care of our health and feel like nothing ever works for me because we're so focused on what we look like instead of what we feel like. And that's really the focus of Get Off the Scale and Heal, is not to abandon your internal well-being for the sake of looking externally well. And that comes from thin privilege and all the messages that try to tell you what you're supposed to look like.
Oh boy, get caught in some algorithm sometime and just go down the rabbit holes and you begin to think of all sorts of things like that, and not realizing that may or may not work for your body. There's a couple of algorithms I've gotten stuck in lately and I just cannot believe them. Like, I'm worried that people will think, okay, if I'm not doing this or I'm not doing just that, that something's wrong with me by the way the algorithms amplify, like this is the thing you should be doing.
Mhm.
This is
Yeah.
the way that you should be being. This is the way you should be looking. And I don't think that's helpful. To me, you don't ever know the context of where these people are coming from and how with social media and the external social things. And like I said, I got caught in these couple of these rabbit holes of algorithms. After a while, you're like, well, maybe I should try that. And then you stop and think a little more rationally. Yeah, that wouldn't work for me because.
And I also feel like when we get caught in those algorithms or all of the different messaging that's coming in from all of the things that we're looking at, it just adds a lot of confusion. Part of what's so important is for us to look at where's the confusion that was created because of our family of origin and all the different messages that we took in there, and how are we adding to that by looking and trying out too many different things to the point that we feel like I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know what's true. And that's why it's so important to go back to tuning into your own body and taking action around what feels good for you.
Tell us where to get your book and then any final thoughts.
So I would love to share that you can get the book on Amazon. There are some areas where you get to walk through and ask yourself questions about how do you deal with tough memories and emotions, and what ways have you moved forward and made progress away from your traumas. So the tangible part is there. The other piece that I want to just always leave everyone with is better is always possible. And it does not mean that you don't want to be content, but it's just reminding yourself that you're not stuck where you are unless you choose to stay there.
That's fantastic. And you can find her everywhere too on the social medias. Her
Yeah.
Instagram is awesome. She always gives great tips and images with lots of things that we can do and think about. Thank you so much, Dr. Charryse, for sharing some time with us. I'm so excited tonight. We have a return guest, Venus Winslow, and she talks about codependency and narcissistic abuse. And let me read her bio because she's awesome. Venus Winslow is a published author, public speaker, and transformational life coach for those recovering from narcissistic upbringing. Pi's mission is to empower others to reclaim their authentic selves and live intentionally free from codependency and narcissistic abuse. So maybe a few of you are like going, oh, yeah, that rings a bell either with me or with someone I know. So welcome, Pi. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Sharon. I'm so happy to be here again.
Oh, we get lots of questions and comments. One of the things that just popped into my head was a rule I adopted years ago after being exposed to a narcissist or two. And I remember whenever my friend said, what is it about so and so? And then out of my mouth would come, you just don't understand. I learned the hard way. That was my warning signal. The next time, if that came out of my mouth, my friends understood far more than I understood, that I was having to make excuses for whatever I was doing in this particular relationship. And I found that to be really helpful to have that as my, okay, if that comes out of my mouth, that's my early warning sign that I need to at least take a step back and take off the rose-colored glasses and take a nice hard look at whatever's happening.
Absolutely. That's actually a really good indicator to step back. Anybody who grew up in a childhood environment where they experienced manipulation, control, abuse, neglect, they're already, in a sense, preconditioned to have codependency traits. Because when we're children, we need to bond with our parent, and it's a survival mechanism. It's in our DNA, because if we lose our parent, we will die. We need our parent to take care of us completely for the first 18 years of our lives, at least. We need to be attached to our primary caregiver. And so if our primary caregiver has narcissistic traits or abusive traits, then we adapt to continue to maintain that bond. And so that attachment, a healthy attachment, is having a healthy relationship with your caregiver. But if your caregiver wasn't a healthy person and your relationship with them was challenged, then you're going to have a maladaptive attachment style, and that's going to carry over into your adult life. So our caregiver or parent is our first love relationship. It's where we're nurtured, we feel safe, we get affection, we're validated, we're seen, we're heard. But if that doesn't happen in your childhood, or it's inconsistent or warped in a way, we look for those same qualities in other people, not consciously though.
So I think the problem is that growing up in it, not knowing any different, we think it's normal.
Exactly. And there's a difference between normal and healthy in what we were talking about. So if your normal is an unhealthy relationship with a parent or a family system or a partner or a love interest or a job, a coworker, a boss, or a friend, then that might be normal to you, but it's not necessarily healthy. So if you grow up with unhealthy being your normal, then that's going to be familiar to you later in life, but it's not healthy.
Good point. Yes. And the word appeasement keeps coming into my mind when you're describing this codependency dynamic, narcissistic power, especially in a family system, whether it's a parent or a spouse or something like that. It sounds like the codependent or the person without the narcissistic tendencies is doing a lot of appeasement, trying to please the other person.
Absolutely. Yes. People pleasing is a hallmark trait of people with codependency. Agreeableness and people pleasing. There's many other traits. Perfectionism, needing things to be perfect, needing to have other people think we're perfect, that we're a good person. So we're also, in a sense, concerned. And I say we, because I'm talking about myself here too, because I've struggled with codependency because I grew up with an alcoholic father and a narcissistic mother. So I am perfectly primed for narcissistic relationships. And my work on myself, my personal development work, is around codependencies, people pleasing, perfectionism, looking good, being acutely aware of other people's emotional state while disconnected from our own emotional state. I would say codependency, in one brief description, is overinflating the value of others while diminishing the value of the self to the point of self-abandonment. That can take place over time in any relationship.
I can see very specifically that if you're from birth, you're almost set up in a way to have that as an adult. I'm just wondering, like, where is that point where someone has those moments of, this isn't working?
So people who have codependent traits have a tendency to swing from one extreme to the other. So yes, codependents are some of the nicest people in the world. They're very caring, they're very empathetic, they're very generous, very giving, and they want attachment to people. They want relationship with people, and that's a good thing. But to an extreme, which is to the point of neglecting themselves, really losing themselves in relationship with other people, where over time, the relationship, all their focus is on the other person, and they lose focus on themselves. And then the other side of that is when codependents get hurt, they go to extreme behaviors to protect themselves. And a lot of the time, their frustration with the relationship and the fact that they're neglecting themselves, they turn that inward onto themselves. They can develop addictions to deal with the pain of self-abandoning. They could develop eating disorders. They struggle with maintaining healthy relationships with themselves and other people. The self-abandonment really causes a lot of pain and frustration for codependents because they believe that by pouring themselves into the relationship with the other person, they become dependent on that other person to make them feel good about themselves. So instead of taking care of themselves, they're almost wanting the other person to take on that responsibility. And that is where the dependency takes place. And that puts the power in control of somebody else. So somebody else is now in charge of your happiness.
I'm thinking about multiple ways that there are certain traits that I'm relating to myself and other people in my world. Do you have any tips if somebody's going, it's resonating, but boy, this sounds scary, and fear starts to come up when somebody like, okay, having to admit that perhaps they've abandoned all or part of themselves?
There are ways to heal from codependency. In my opinion, it is really about reclaiming your authentic self. It really is about finding who you really are and feeling good about who you are and developing a deep sense of self, knowing yourself, accepting yourself, forgiving yourself, loving yourself, and protecting yourself.
If I grew up with a narcissistic parent, how would I know who I am? I guess is my thought. That would seem pretty overwhelming to think about. It's hard to know what the other side is, right? Or am I extrapolating this wrong?
I think codependents have an idea of what the other side is. It's just that there's been a dependency on other people to provide that. So codependents know how to feel joy and happiness. They have felt that, but they haven't learned how to generate that so much for themselves. Many codependents, they have these deep internal struggles. They have low self-esteem, they have low self-worth. They live in a lot of fear. They live in fear of judgment, rejection, conflict with other people. They tend to be confused and have brain fog. They're disconnected from themselves. They have a scarcity mindset. They're afraid that they're not going to get their needs met. Worthiness issues, a victim mentality. They often have unprocessed or prolonged grief, and they can slip into depression and sadness. But when they're in relationship with somebody who shines the spotlight of love on them, like the narcissist does, they experience a great high. They experience being loved. They experience being seen. They experience being appreciated. And that's what they wanted. That's what they've wanted all of their lives. So that's the hook. But they tend to dismiss the red flags in the narcissistic relationship. When the narcissist starts like squeezing and like turning the vice, so to speak, or in the example of the frog in the hot water, and you start turning the water up really slowly, and you don't realize it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. The codependent is wishing for what they had in the beginning. So they're doing everything they can to get back those really good feelings and that closeness and that safety and that security that they had in the beginning of the relationship. So to conquer codependency is to recognize that we don't need to be dependent on other people to have good feelings about ourselves. When we learn how to love ourselves and we can connect to our values, we can change our belief systems in our own mind, then we can start experiencing self-love and self-generated attention, care, and we can look at relationships as an extension of what we've already developed inside of ourselves. And we can evaluate those external relationships and determine if they're healthy relationships, if they're good for us. So I always say to people who are recovering from codependency, we've got to give relationships adequate time to develop. We can't put all of our eggs in the basket the first week, 2, 3 weeks, 3 months of getting to know somebody, because we haven't really seen we haven't really seen how that person behaves or responds when conflict comes up, when disagreement comes up.
So go over to fullvenusrising.com and get your copy of the book too, and check out Pi's programs. And thank you so much for sharing with us again, Pi. I always enjoy seeing you and listening to all your wisdom about conquering codependency. Tonight we have Bill C. Potts. I'm going to read his bio to you because it's amazing. He is a 5-time cancer survivor with cancer number 6 efforts currently underway. And you would never know. I've been talking to him for 20 minutes before we started the show, and we should have recorded all of that because it was just amazing. Bill has had a successful business career and an Ironman athlete, and he's a dedicated father of 3, including twin girls. His cancer journey has spanned 22 years as his lymphoma is incurable and keeps coming back. And through this journey, he accidentally became one of the world's most experts on cancer from the patient perspective. And you know what? We were talking about that, and I feel that way about autoimmune. I'm not sure that's a badge I want to wear, but being an informed patient, an informed person with something, I'm not even sure I like the word patient, Bill, and I'll talk about that. But anyway, let me show you his book. If you're on video on YouTube, here's the cover of his book. It's called Up for the Fight: How to Advocate for Yourself as You Battle Cancer from a 5-time Survivor. It's a great book. And what I love about it is, yes, his perspective is cancer, but through the whole thing, I'm going, that's not just about cancer. That's about anything that you're needing in healthcare. So I love it. Welcome, Bill. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, Sharon, thank you for having me on it.
I also took charge, and that is one of my big messages, is take charge of your healthcare. Where did you find that courage from? With the white coat authority I was raised with and everything, I've always been fascinated. Where did it come from for me to say no to certain treatments?
I think it came out of frustration. It also came out of fear, and it also just how I'm wired in life. Always been the go-getter, type A, take charge, set goals, and it just didn't pass the sniff test. And I'm like, wow, this is about money, not about me. I better find somebody that cares about me, not about the money. And so I just needed to put myself in that position and find the right team to do it. And I'm thankful I did, because I am 100% confident that if I hadn't got a second opinion in 2002, I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you. I would have been blasted with ridiculous levels of radiation.
You said something that was fascinating to me. It's about taking charge of your own healthcare. And that's what the book is about, by the way. That's why I say it works for whether you have cancer or autoimmune or anything else. One of the things that I was nodding my head through the whole book, but there's one place that I want to start with. And a lot of the book, by the way, is about communicating. And I know Bill mentioned about a team, and definitely want to encourage all of you listening. Make sure that you have a team that A, listens to you, and B, talks to each other. I do want to backtrack and go tangential here. I'm going to just read this out of the book. Pause and then be deliberate as to who you share the news with. Wow. I just nodded my head along. What's your story behind that wise advice?
It is great advice, and thankfully I listened to myself and followed it. But when you're given a diagnosis of any serious health issue, you have to take a big, deep breath so that you can get your own emotions in order. You know what it's like. You start having a hard time thinking. The stress of it is enormous. And so you need to harness your own emotions before you really tell too many people. Because what happens if you post it on social media, all of a sudden now you're having to comfort everybody else. And I saw this even in 2008 with the lymphoma, when my neighbors knew, and somebody would come over and I'd open the door and they would start crying. I'm like, now I'm comforting you. And seriously, I'm the one who's, trying not to die here. I should be crying, not you. And so if you post it on social media, it creates a monumental task of trying to manage other people's emotion while you're managing yours, let alone the fact that perhaps I don't want my work to know about it, because it could affect my job. It could affect promotions. Certain people may have to know about it. In addition, that wide communication can impact your life in other ways, and you may start hearing from people you don't want to hear from. And if you post it on social media, it's real challenging.
I learned this before my autoimmune diagnosis, but when I got pregnant, it was like
Oh, yeah.
had experienced a pregnancy or been near a pregnant person had comments about what to expect and the horrors of labor and all of those sorts of things. And in my mind, also, besides social media, be careful who you share it with because you don't need that kind of stuff implanted in your brain. The worst case outcome, all of the horror stories.
Plus the questions. Bill, I had one. What are your odds?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, wait a second. Are you really asking me this question? I said, it's 100%. My odds are 100%. I'm like, think about it. Either live or I die. It's 100%. And I'm like, why would you ask that question? Are you going to beat it, Bill? I'm like, oh, you know? Yeah, that's demeaning. You tell me I'm going to beat it or I'm going to beat it because of my positive attitude. False. It helps, but it isn't going to save me, right? So you're demeaning those that have a negative attitude. And we all go through ups and downs, you know, through our healthcare journey of sadness and depression. When cancer, one of the most common things is they prescribe you antidepressants. Why? Because it's sad. It's hard to go through it. And those kind of questions drive me crazy because it's not very thoughtful. Or, Bill, let me tell you about my friend who went through cancer treatment. Or, Bill, have you tried this place in Mexico that does this certain thing? Or have you tried drinking this juice? I'm like, stop. It's my journey. I own it. I will listen to constructive comments, but those aren't constructive. Those are almost a little bit selfish. So yeah, that's why I limit who I reach out to. And in particular cases, like with my prostate stuff, seriously, does a guy want to advertise to everybody that he's got prostate cancer, he's having prostate surgery next week? I am, because of the book, but that wouldn't be my pick without the book.
On my perspective, I'd love to know your perspective. I got to the point when I started the show that I was okay with who I was and all of
Yeah.
the information coming my way. It had happened so much that pretty soon it was just my filters learned to block it out and
Yeah,
thought,
same.
the message I'm learning of what the path is, and if I can help someone, and I know your book does that, and you're just amazing in that, if I can help someone who is not as far along the path as I am, realize that there is hope and help on the other side as you're going through this journey. You don't have to walk it alone. Once you get to that place of over the grief and the sadness of the diagnosis and the shock, and your family gets to a centered place, sharing with people who are newer on the path, I think became a critical part of my motivation to continue to thrive and continue to seek out new ways to improve my health.
Yeah, that's really well said in so many different areas. I don't know how you are with your show, but there's times where I just don't want to talk about my journey. And then
Oh,
I get
absolutely.
then I get reminded, and I got reminded again yesterday, where somebody tells me that, hey, I gave this book to a friend and they had given up their fight and they read your book and now they're fighting again. And so thank you for that. And it reminds me that, okay, this is not the path I chose, but this is now my purpose, like you, is to communicate with others going through the journey to help them through it. And it's become my purpose in life. And who would have guessed, right? I kept it a secret for so long, even from my work. And then I got to a point where they're piling up, 2, 3, 4, 5, that all of a sudden the pastor at Mayo tells me to write a book and boom, it's not a secret anymore. And I found that to be hard, but like you, rewarding in ways that are hard to describe. The impact that you have with the reach that you have, Sharon, the change that you made, you have no idea, but how big it is, but it's big. And what greater purpose in life is there to help somebody else? And you're doing it by the thousands and tens of thousands. And that's why I'm so glad to be on your show.
We'll have to have Bill back on. I just love his spirit, everyone. And get the book, Up for the Fight. Here's a picture if you're on YouTube. Up for the Fight, How to Advocate for Yourself as You Battle Cancer from a 5-Time Survivor. And so everyone, have a great week, whatever your adventures, and join me next week for another brand new episode. Enjoy. Thank you so much, Bill. That was awesome.
Oh my gosh, I loved it.
The information provided on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, including the websites understandingautoimmune.com and lifeinterruptedradio.com, plus social media, is for educational purposes only. What you read, hear, and see on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, and its websites, and other media outlets is based on experience only. The information should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes.